I'm sure you're familiar with the notion that since Torah Sheba'al Peh was meant to stay that way, was meant to be Ba'al Peh, so when it was transmitted, when it was written down by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, finally, he put together a lot of, midrashim and maimars, whatever statements, and Aggadic stories and parables. He clumped a lot of them together, and very much the Gemara can be very topical, as well as when you have a certain rabbi that you don't hear so much from throughout Shas. So when you hear him say one statement that's relevant to the topic, the Gemara will list off some more statements that this Rav made. And it's very similar in the Midrashim of Chumash, that we find that a lot of times when one Midrash conveys a message, it will immediately follow, another Midrash will immediately follow that will convey a very similar message. And sometimes it may seem like it's the exact same message, and we don't pay attention and are not so sensitive to the differences in the wording and the imagery that's used. We can sometimes gloss over maybe a newer meaning, a deeper level within the Midrash that is similar to the previous one. And we see that here, a great example here at the beginning of Parshas Re'eh, combined with the end of last week's Parsha, where we're told in Akev, the final Parsha of the Parsha, Ki'im Shemor Tishmerun et Kol HaMitzvah Zot La'asosa V'Horish Hashem et Kol HaGoyim. If you are Shemor Tishmerun, there's a Kefa Lashon, right? It goes over itself, this descriptive term of guarding my mitzvos, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, quid pro quo, will return the favor in a sense. But it's the double Lashon, as well as going into Re'eh. Re'eh Anochi Noten Lifneichem Hayom. We know later on, Habracha ve'Haklala, Hatov ve'Hara, Chaim ve'Hatov. This idea of what happens if we go with the Torah versus against the Torah, which is a common theme throughout Akev and Re'eh. And going into that, the Midrash brings down a statement of Bar Kapara. Bar Kapara says, Nefesh, a man's soul, and Torah are both nimshalu, are both compared to a ner, a candle. Right? We know that the pasuk says, Ner Hashem nishmas Adam, and Ner mitzvah Torah or. Now, Bar Kapara isn't so much interested here in this Midrash, the distinction between Ner being mitzvah and Torah being a more all-encompassing or, but he looks at Ner as a candle, as something, as one and the same. And the distinctions and the comparables here are the soul of man and the Torah, which is, in Bar Kapara's eyes here, in a sense, kaviyachol, that the Torah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's soul. That's the comparison. What does the Midrash come and tell us based on this pasuk of Ki'im Shamor Tishmerun? So Bar Kapara says, Neri biyad HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my candle is in your hands, your candle is in my hands, you take care of my candle that's in your hands, and I'll do the same for you. This is a very, very interesting Midrash that talks about the fragility of man's life, and maybe perhaps the fragility of Torah, and that's what we should be focusing on to preserve our candle, which can be blown away in the wind. Obviously, the soul of Hashem being the Torah, in a sense, the best way to come close and connect to Him, his quote-unquote neshama. On the heels of this Midrash, Rabbi Shimon, and this is a Midrash actually brought in from Tanchuma at the end of Parshas Kedoshim in Vayikra, the Midrash here brings it in and kind of mentions it in passing, because again, it's similar, but it's different, and listen to it. Rabbi Shimon says there's a mashal, it brings in a mashal, a parable. You have a man who lives in the Galil, who lives in the north, and he has a vineyard in the south. And then you have a man who lives in the south and owns a vineyard in the north. So they live very far away from their vineyards, and they come to realize in passing time that it's a lot more economical. They realize that one and the other lives in that location, and the one who lives in the south turns to the guy who lives in the north and says, you take care of my vineyard, and I'll take care of your vineyard. The Lashon is, Ad she'ata ba'al limkomi, before you come here, save yourself the trouble, shamor et shali b'tchumecha, guard mine that's in your region. I don't have to come all the way up there. You take care of it for me. Very similar to what Bar Kapara was saying. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Nercha biyadi, Neri biyadcha, Shemor shalcha, etc. And same thing here. Ad she'ata ba'al limkomi, Shemor et shali b'tchumecha, and vice versa. Now, this takes it really a step further, though, this Midrash, the second Midrash. This idea, this notion that we we are providing a service. We're guarding Kadosh Baruch Hu's Torah and saving him the trouble, kaviyachol, of leaving his tchum, his region. Obviously, Kadosh Baruch Hu is Makom Shel Olam, but in this mashal, that we save Kadosh Baruch Hu the trip into our realm. The Torah is in our realm. Kadosh Baruch Hu gifted to us, as we know, Lo B'Shamayim Hi, and the whole uproar, the midrashim of the malachim, of the angels who were so aghast that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give the Torah to basar v'dam, to man that sins. It is so much more worthy of the angels that don't sin. And Moshe argues back, and he says, what, do you guys have a temptation to steal? We do. We need the Torah. The Torah is something that is naturally belonging in the realm of man. It lives here. Lo b'shamayim hi. Shamayim shamayim l'Hashem v'ha'aretz natan livnei adam. We have, with this Torah, the capacity, the power to enact godliness in this world, to create historical, natural changes without nisim goyim of Hashem. And this is an idea that the Ramban talks about at the beginning of Bereshis, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Abraham, Ani El Shaddai, that name Shin Daled Yud, that we wear in our tefillin every day, Shaddai, She'amar le'olamo dai, that's what Rashi says. It's a connotation of tzimtzum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, enough, let the humans do what they do. But the Ramban disagrees. He quotes the Ibn Ezra, who brings in Shmuel HaNagid, who says, no, it's from the root of shoded, of loosely translated a vanquisher, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu vanquishes all the other constellations and stars and all the other powers that be, that run this world in a sense, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will go above and beyond that when it comes to the Jewish people. And the Ramban says that is how it manifests itself, is through the mitzvos, is the schar of mitzvos, as we're told in B'chukosayim. We're told last week's Parsha, and this week's Parsha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will change the nature of things within nature to reward us for our mitzvos. As the Ramban says, it is not natural for us to fulfill a mitzvah and rain to come down. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do anything supernatural. He rewards us with nature. But it's a nes nistar. That's what nes nistar is. That's the definition of it. As the Kedushas Levi explains, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like the metzitz min hacharachim. There's looking on a person through a window, and that person can see you back. But sometimes when you have little cracks in the window, I can see you, but you can't see me. That's a nes nistar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the Torah to enact HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. We're not bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into this region. It's our tchum, the tchum of nature, in a sense. And in that tchum of nature, we have an ability to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu and create within nature. That's what the Meshech Chochmah says at the end of this parsha, at the end of this sefer in Kitavo. We're told, Lo natan Hashem lachem leiv ladat ad hayom hazeh. We don't know true reality until we enter Eretz Yisrael, because up until now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been so prevalent in our lives, but soon he's going to take a step back and we're going to enter the world of Torah Shabbal Peh, we're going to enter the world of working the land, and bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the land, and bringing the Torah, and using the Torah to bring out HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the land. And this notion of Torah being another reality in nature, and the ability to have it play off of nature, right? The halachic reality that we discussed when it comes to Rav Moshe saying, I'm physically unable to move in these Daled Amos because somebody's davening and I can't step in front of him. It's a halachic reality. We find the same thing, a kadosh reality, and how the kedusha and halacha really creates another reality in this natural world. We see it in this week's Parsha as well. I want to focus on 3 different psukim. We say, Banim Hashem l'Hashem Elokeichem. We go into the hilchos of treifos and kosher and non-kosher animals, right? We're prefaced with, we are Hashem's children, and Am Kadosh Atah. We are Kadosh, and therefore, Kedusha generally explained and defined is a certain amount of removing, a hefresh, removing ourselves, and creating boundaries that aren't necessarily there. Lo tochal kol toeva. And then it lists off all the kosher and non-kosher animals. And finally concludes, Ki am kadosh ata l'Hashem Elokecha, just like it began, it's a bookend. And then, Lo tevash al gadi b'chalei v'imo. So the Ramban is perplexed by this. This Lo tevash al gadi b'chalei v'imo should have been put right before Ki am kadosh ata, which kind of, again, bookends and segments this parsha of of kosher and non-kosher. Why is lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo come after ki am kadosh ata? And then immediately following that, we're told aser to aser, and Rashi talks about why that comes next after lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. But we know that we're supposed to do meiser ve'achal lifnei Hashem Elokecha, talking about meiser sheni, to be ma'aser, to take off a certain tithe and go eat that and eat with Hakadosh Baruch Hu lifnei Hashem Elokecha b'makom asher yibchal sheken shemo sham in the Beis Hamikdash. So the Ramban again is perplexed by the fact that ki am kadosh ata appears right before lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo, as if it is external from all the other elements of kedusha when it comes to eating. So the Ramban explains is that inherently basar b'chalav, gedi b'chalev imo, is not something that is, says, I'll use the Lashon Ramban, einenu ma'achal nit'av. It is not necessarily something that Kadosh Baruch Hu is an abomination from him, is non-godly, as Unclus would translate at toeva, something that is merachak min kadam Hashem. But rather, says the Ramban, the lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo is for kadosh reasons. Beyond being toeva, it's achzari. It is a cruel practice to cook a baby. Literally, the basar b'chalav lav is a baby in its mother's milk. That's an element of cruelty. And the Ramban says, but there are so many other instances of basar b'chalav that also, when you take that animal's primary source of life, of sustenance, and you cook the animal in that is achzarius. So we see Kedusha can not only be, this is why it's lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo is next to ki am kadosh ata, because Kedusha is not necessarily just a separation, but it is also a deep focus on the inherent, innate, positive, kadosh, tamim qualities that man has. Kedusha is not this separate realm, it is the realm of man. The realm of good man. The Lekach V'Alibu very famously says in the Haggadah, when we finally finish the whole Seder and we say Echad Miyodeya. So Lekach V'Alibu says, really, and he says this about the Pesach Seder, at the end of the Pesach Seder, and Rosh Hashanah, when we say the brachos for the Simanim. He says that it's a test. Echad Miyodeya is a test. Once we've gone all through everything and recognized the nisim and niflos and yeshuos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed in our lives, because ki'ilu hu atzmo yatzad mitzrayim, Kadosh Baruch Hu tests us. When you see these realities, when you see Echad, when you hear that number, one, what do you think of? And the answer should be Elokeinu Shebashamayim V'Aretz. We see the Kedusha, the Torah, the godliness, the Elokos in the reality that we live in. Beyond the reality that we see, beyond the reality that we feel, beyond the reality that we are stuck in terms of space and time. But there's another reality that we have to recognize. That is Echad Elokeinu Shebashamayim V'Aretz, Shnei Luchos Abris. And it's the same thing on Rosh Hashanah when we sit down and we're looking at these foods, and instead of thinking about how it's going to satiate us, we're thinking about the brachos that it brings. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was Makar of many Yidden, and he was once asked, if I'm going to take on a mitzvah, I don't do many mitzvahs, but if I'm going to take on one mitzvah, what should I take on? He said, Negel Vaser. Because if you start your day off recognizing Kedusha, then everything else will follow. That's what it means to be a Jew, to see, this is what we're told, Re'eh, see, Anochi Notanu Lechem Hayom, Habracha ve'atakala, Chaim ve'atov. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the Bechira to open our eyes and see the actual reality. And I think that when we recognize that there is a reality beyond the one that we just see, when Kadosh Baruch Hu pulls back those curtains, he's telling us to pull back those curtains. He's given us the Torah in our Tchum. He's given us Kedusha, not just a differentiation, a separation, but rather focusing in ourselves and bringing out the good in us. That's how we start to get closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu and emulate Kadosh Baruch Hu and bring the Geula. To become that sensitive to the realities and what's really going on behind the curtain. Good Shabbos.